can start.
Sabakara Kamala Parenakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Tabakara Kamala Varenakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Tabakara Kamala Varenakam Adhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare
Tabakara Kamala Varenakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
No, that's fine. Very good. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Arjuna, for doing that wonderful puja. Thank you, Savitri, for leading beautiful bhajan. Thank you, Krishna Prasada, for all of your troubleshooting, without which no one would be able to see us right now. And thank you to everyone for being here with us, both here at our temple as well as online in many different nations throughout the world. I see here that we have people thus far from everywhere, certainly America, but also Germany, Portugal, UK, and many, many other places as well. And let me just say, it is truly my honor to be here with you all. And before we begin, first, as usual, I will simply say some invocations, and everyone who is here at our temple, please repeat after me. And then for those of you at home, please feel free to do so as well, either out loud or at least in your mind. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Dharma Rashtra Jayate.
Suryavansha Jayate.
Surya Vangsha Jayate.
Om Hrihi Om. Namaste, everyone. Again, it is my pleasure to be here with you today as we have our usual Sunday Satsangha live stream. And what we're going to be doing today is a little bit special, actually. The title of the talk is Approaching the Guru for Instruction. But in actuality, we're going to be doing quite a bit today with the verses that we're going to be looking at. In fact, give me a moment and I'll bring up the verses. What we're going to be looking at are several verses from a very special work that is not very well known in the Western world, even among many Vedic practitioners. It's called the Yoga Yajnavalkya. And this is a work that I love, actually. I've read it several times, and in fact, just a few days ago, I read it again, actually. I read the entire work. It's not a very big work, but I read the entire work, and that's what inspired me to do what we're going to be doing today. And let me first explain a little bit about what this work is. And I have commented on a few verses from this sacred scripture in the past, but just to repeat a little bit for individuals who may not remember what this work is. First of all, Yajnavalkya. Quite a mouthful if you don't know Sanskrit, but this is the name of a very great, very important Vedic Rishi, and specifically an Upanishadic Rishi. He's known for several things, including being a true philosopher par excellence. In fact, in the history of philosophy, many people have debated about, who was the first quote-unquote philosopher in the modern understanding of that term. Some people will point to the pre-Socratics in the Western world. Some people will point to other people. Truthfully, Yajnavalkya is one of, he's not the only, but he's one of the earliest true philosophers in that sense of the term, meaning using all of the different categories of philosophy in order to understand what is the nature of reality. So indeed, he's a very important figure. He is a figure who is spoken of in the Upanishads, in other places as well. He is specifically, very self-consciously a Vedantist. So when you read his teachings specifically in the Upanishads, he speaks about Vedanta. He speaks about what is the nature of Brahman, of the Absolute, what is the nature of self, etc. So he talks about all of these common themes that we find in Vedanta philosophy. Now, what's interesting is he wrote several books, not just Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, and not just this famous Upanishad, but also, again, this work that we're going to be commenting on, which is named after him, the Yoga Yajnavalkya. And as you can tell by the title, this talk is not, or I should say, this book is not so much focusing on Vedanta itself, but on yoga, interestingly. And what we find is that this is actually something that's common with many of these great rishis of the past. You see, today, academicians for the last, roughly 150, 200 years, they try to make these artificial demarcations when it comes to these great Vedic philosophers. So-and-so only commented on this one aspect of philosophy. This one commented on a different aspect of philosophy. Not understanding the fact that in actuality, when you look at all of these rishis, you can't really say that they were, exclusively yogis, only commenting on yoga, exclusively Vedantists, or exclusively speaking about Nyaya philosophy, Mimamsa philosophy, etc. No, what we find is that these were well-rounded individuals, as we are meant to be today as well in how we approach spirituality. What does it mean to be well-rounded in approaching spirituality? What it means is that certainly we have to be philosophical, so there's the Vedantic element, where indeed we are pondering philosophical topics in order to know what is the nature of reality, but we also need to practice as well. This is where yoga comes in. When we think about yoga, and interestingly, the philosophy of yoga, yoga as one of the darshanas, one of the philosophical systems, it is a practiced philosophy. So this is why, interestingly, and I'm going very, very deep into this, this is why, interestingly, if you look at the ancient Greek philosophers, when they spoke about yogis, they understood that these were yogic philosophers. They understood, indeed, these are the ancient Greek philosophers who wrote about yogis. Some of them ventured to India, etc. They met some of these yogis. They would describe these individuals as people who, in practicing even the asanas, in practicing meditation, sadhana, etc., they were living their philosophy. So indeed, this is what is understood about all of these great rishis, including Yajnavalkya. So this is why it's not surprising that he wrote about Vedanta. He also wrote about yoga. He practiced both. Indeed, like all the great rishis, he practiced all of it. He practiced all of the various aspects of spirituality. Now, all that being said, Yajnavalkya is known for many things, including the things that I mentioned, including things we don't even have time to mention. But one other thing that he is known for, interestingly, is his wife. His wife's name was Gargi. And a very interesting story. She was the wife of Yajnavalkya, so now getting back to what I've repeated many times, that the ancient rishis, the vast majority of them were indeed married. They were not swamis, they were not sannyasis, they were married individuals. And these are the greatest of sages. These are the sages who quite literally reveal our scripture. They are the highest sages imaginable. And yet the vast majority of them were married, as was Yajnavalkya. His wife's name was Gargi, and interestingly, she was not only his wife, she was his initiated disciple as well. Indeed, when we look at these verses, that's made extremely clear, and in other places as well. But going even deeper, Gargi was herself recognized as a philosopher. She was someone who, despite the fact that she was a woman, she was respected as also, actually, interestingly, a Vedantic philosopher, to the point where, indeed, she would engage in debates with other philosophers, etc. She was someone who was known for her philosophical brilliance. So what we find in this specific work by Yajnavalkya, the Yoga Yajnavalkya, is that there is a philosophical discussion that takes place between Yajnavalkya on the one hand and his wife/disciple on the other, and that's what the entire book is discussing what is the nature of yoga. Now, all that being said, we're actually not going to delve very deeply into the work itself and what Yajnavalkya's actual teachings are. The reason why is because A, we already kind of did that with a previous live stream, plus we will be doing that more in the future. Rather, what I wanted to focus on was the very beginning of the Yoga Yajnavalkya. Before they even begin to seriously have their philosophical discussion, what I want to talk about are these verses that set up the discussion. The reason why is because in these verses alone, there is so much that is here that indeed we can and we will spend a long time just looking at these few short verses before they even have their discussion. And the reason why this talk is called Approaching the Guru for Instruction is because we see several things. First of all, precisely the mood, the etiquette, the temperament with which Gargi approaches her guru, Yajnavalkya. So we see what is the proper mood in which a person even approaches a guru for instruction. And then what we see after that is we see Yajnavalkya responding to his wife. And in his response, again, before he even begins to give his actual official teaching, he throws so much at us philosophically that for the rest of today, of our live stream, we're just going to focus on that. So in other words, this is just barely the introduction, but this alone we can talk about for a long time, and we will. So all that being said, let's dive into these verses. If you want to follow along, just go to the description of this video, and you'll see that we have the actual verses there, so you can feel free to follow along. But we're going to begin with several verses together because it's a flow. And this is chapter 1 of the Yoga Yajnavalkya, and verses 6, 7, and 8. And it proceeds in this way. In the assembly of great sages, the wife of Yajnavalkya, known as Gargi, endowed with unparalleled qualities, who has attained the realization of the highest truth, fell at his feet and spoke as follows. Gargi said, "One who is fit to be worshipped, who has studied and realized the essence of the Shastras, who is concerned about the welfare of all beings, please teach me the essence of yoga with all its branches and sub-branches." And this ends these few verses here. So again, there is quite a bit that is seen here. First of all, again, it's established who this person is. This is not just anyone. Her name is Gargi. She is indeed the very wife of Yajnavalkya. She is a disciple, a student of Yajnavalkya, and she is approaching him again with the proper mood. But we'll get to the mood in a moment. First of all, what's interesting are these qualities that are described about her. So let's look at this a little bit. First of all, so again, the wife of Yajnavalkya, known as Gargi, endowed with unparalleled qualities. So it begins with this description of, okay, well, who is this Gargi? She has unparalleled qualities. Now, why is this important? When it comes to the relationship between disciple and guru, when it comes to an individual who wishes to approach the guru, this cannot be just anyone. It has to be someone who, to begin with, they have to have the necessary prerequisites such that they can derive actual benefit from the guru. So this is something that's very important. This is said about her. She has unparalleled qualities. Now, what exactly is meant by unparalleled qualities? It doesn't go very deeply. Actually, there are other verses that we're not going to look at today where it goes deeper into, okay, who is this Gargi? How is she wonderful, etc., etc. But in this particular context, of course, because it is the case that she is approaching the guru for instruction, we can infer that the qualities that she has are those qualities that are necessary. That she has wisdom, that she has patience, that she has sincerity, that she has honesty, etc., etc. But then it goes on, again, to continue to describe Gargi, who has attained the realization of the highest truth. Now, this is interesting. Again, if a person reads this, they may do one of two things. They may just kind of read through this and not really think about the implications of what was just said, and just go on with the rest of the book. Or they may overthink the implications of what was just said, and they may be confused. Well, wait a minute, what does this say? Oh, she has attained realization of the highest truth. Well, then why is she approaching to even ask questions? What does this mean, etc.? Well, let me explain this. First of all, again, Gargi is not an ordinary person. She is someone who is herself a great philosopher. She is someone who herself is a self-realized person. Indeed, she understands, she has had realization of the highest truth. This being the case, why would it be even necessary for her to make any sort of inquiry? Well, let's talk about that for a moment. Several things to be said. First of all, even for an individual who has had realization of the highest truth, once you had that realization, does spiritual progress stop then? Of course not. See, all my students here, you can't see them where you are, but my students in the temple are shaking their head. They know the answer. No, spiritual progress continues. Realization continues. It continues not just as far as quantity, not just as far as philosophically, but depthfully as well. So indeed, a person can have deep realization of the highest truth, but that can only increase more and more and more. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. This is something else of many things that this shows. And that is that when an individual even achieves self-realization, does this mean that they are to stop asking questions of the guru? They no longer need the guru? No, of course not. You continue to ask questions. You continue to see the guru as the individual who is your instructor. And then the final thing I'm going to say is this. Is she asking these questions that she will then ask all throughout the totality of this book? So like Arjuna, is she asking these questions only for her own benefit? No. And in fact, in a short time, we'll see why that is the case, how that is the case. Because how does she address now her guru, her husband? How does she address Yajnavalkya? She begins to address him now, and she says several things. So she's speaking to Yajnavalkya, and she says, one who is fit to be worshipped. She's calling him this, because again, he is the guru. And indeed, the guru is someone who is fit to be worshipped. We discussed this last time with Guru Purnima. Oh no, not that the guru is God, but you respect the guru in the same manner in which you respect God. So she's addressing him. One who is fit to be worshipped. But then she goes on. She discusses his qualifications. Now, very important. Who has studied and realized the essence of the Shastras. Now, let's stop there. Those are his qualifications. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? This alone I can go on for a long time speaking about, because it is that important. Again, how many individuals are there in the world today on YouTube? They have Facebook pages, they're putting out books, they're appearing on Oprah Winfrey, etc., etc. How many people are there out there who claim to be spiritual teachers? Oh, I just wrote my latest New York Times bestseller. Here it is. How to Know God in 30 Seconds or Less. How many individuals are there who they've got hundreds, thousands of so-called gurus, so-called spiritual teachers on YouTube, and they all have 1 million subscribers, 500,000 subscribers, etc., etc., etc. We know there are so many. But what tends to be, very sadly, the common denominator between the vast majority of these individuals who have set themselves up as spiritual teachers? They have zero qualifications. And in many cases, I'm quite serious, zero. You can read their little biographical snippet put together by their marketing team, and even with that, as hard as they try to make themselves seem qualified, they're not. They really are not. They don't have education in just even the typical sense of the word. They're not educated. They did not study the Sanskrit literature. They don't know Sanskrit, forget about that. What to speak of delving deeply and truly studying the Vedic scriptures. If they did, who did they study with? Not someone who's recognized, etc., etc., etc. You know, I'll never forget, actually. Oh, this was about 20 years ago. I was living in Madison, Wisconsin. And this was when Borders bookstore still existed, for people who remember that. It was a great bookstore. And I remember going there one day because I was doing research. I knew I wanted to publish my own books, etc. And I was just curious to see, oh, what books are out there that might be comparable, which there were none. But still, I tried to find some things that were close. And I remember looking through a bunch of books that I found at Borders. And these were supposed to be very big sellers on Vedic this, yoga that, meditation this, etc., etc. And an experience I had that I remember to this day is I would try to look for the little, biographical snippets of these individuals. Okay, here's an interesting title. Who is this person? And oh, here we go. Here's a paragraph talking about the person. And it would say various things about various people. And there was one that stood out specifically because the title even looked slightly authentic. I remember turning the back. Oh, here's a nice photo of the person. Yeah, okay, not a bad looking guy. All right, who is this person? Oh, so-and-so has practiced yoga for the last 7 years and visited a Hindu temple somewhere in California and decided to start teaching. And I'm not joking. I won't say the name, even the name of the book or what to speak of the person. These were the qualifications. Okay, he studied yoga for 7 years. All right. You know, and he visited a Hindu temple in California, and now he's an authority. No. This is why this is so important, that when Gargi is addressing, knowing that we will be reading this thousands of years later and thus learning a very valuable lesson, when she's addressing Yajnavalkya, she says this, and let me repeat this, who has studied and realized the essence of the Shastras. These are among the qualifications. There are actually many qualifications that must be there if a person is going to call themselves a guru. This is only one, but this is one of the foundational ones. You must have studied, and that's the word that's used in the Sanskrit. You must have studied the Shastra, the totality of the Vedic scripture, and not just studied these Vedic scriptures, but understood, again, what she says, the essence of these Shastras. See, it's one thing to even say, oh yes, I've read all the scriptures, I've read them, oh that's nice, all right. How long did that take you? Well, you know, it's a lot. I tried to read as fast as I can. Oh, okay, well, that's nice. And you understood the gist? Well, some of it was confusing, some of it was nice. No. For a person to be a guru, they must have not only read, not only studied, they must have understood, and not just understood. They must have understood via direct realization and experience the very essence of the Vedic scriptures. So those are the qualifications of a guru. Now let's go on. And this part is important. Who is concerned about the welfare of all beings. So again, Gargi is still addressing her guru here. And she's saying, oh, you who are concerned about the welfare of all beings. So this is compassion. These are the qualities that a guru must have. They must also be compassionate. They are concerned about the welfare, about that which will help all beings. And again, that's why this very work was written, is in order to help all beings. And then she says, please teach me the essence of yoga with all its branches and sub-branches. So indeed, going back to the title of this talk, Approaching the Guru for Instruction, this is how we approach the Guru. It's with humility, and it's with understanding, who am I? Am I qualified to even hear? Am I qualified to even be instructed? And then, all right, given that I am, do I understand what is the nature of this person who is teaching me? Well, Gargi made it very clear she understands. And then you ask with humility, please teach me anything? No. Indeed, again, look at the wording. Not just, oh, teach me yoga. Yeah, I want to know how to do a good headstand. No. Teach me the essence of yoga and all of its branches and sub-branches. In other words, teach me the very heart of yoga itself and everything that that means. So amazing. We could just stop here, actually, because truthfully, here alone we see how we are to indeed approach a guru for instruction. Understanding ourselves already having some very good qualities. It can't be that we have nothing going for us, and yet, oh yes, I want to know the highest of the highest. No, I don't have anything going for me. No, I've never read a book in my life. No, I have no sincerity. I have no good qualities whatsoever. Haven't taken a shower in 2 weeks, and on and on. I have literally nothing going on in my life whatsoever. But oh yes, yeah, go ahead, teach me. Yeah, I'm here. I guess I might as well learn something. No. No. We ourselves have to have the proper qualities. We have to be qualified individuals. And then that being the case, we have the ability to now approach the Guru. Now, let's go on and see what Yajnavalkya actually says, how he responds to her. And how he responds to her is amazing. Again, this is just his response. He's not really even officially teaching yet. And yet, in this response, there's so much that's here. So now we're looking at, to let you know specifically, we're looking at, again, chapter 1, verses 9 to 17 of the Yoga Yajnavalkya. So it's quite a few verses, but it's all together. Requested thus, Yajnavalkya, who is worthy of being worshipped, viewed all the assembled sages, and spoke as follows. Yajnavalkya said, Gargi, best among those who have realized the ultimate truth, arise. May all be well with you. I will tell you all about the essence of yoga, which was taught to me by the creator god Brahma. Gargi, when I teach you, listen to me with a focused mind. And that ends that quote. So saying, meditating in his heart with one-pointed concentration upon the Lord of the universe, Narayana, who resides in the heart of all beings, who is the support for the existence of all forms of life in all the worlds, who is the source of this universe, who is fit to be meditated upon by yogis, who is unattached, who is always in a state of bliss, who is immortal, eternal, omnipresent, who is the ruler of the senses. Yajnavalkya, whose wealth in his penance and austerity, and who is the greatest among the realized souls, beholding Gargi with compassion, said, and now again this is Yajnavalkya speaking, O Gargi, realized one, who is proficient in all the Shastras, come forward. I will explain the principles of yoga which were taught to me by Brahma, known as Parameshti, that is the guru of one's guru's guru. Sages who are assembled here, listen to me with total concentration along with Gargi. And these are the verses. Very powerful. It's a lot, and we're going to go through all of this, of course, as I always say, as quickly as we can. We'll try to go through this somewhat quickly, but we are going to go through this thoroughly because it's very, very important, actually. So let's go through this. First of all, requested thus Yajnavalkya, and now this is interesting. You remember that when Gargi previously was addressing Yajnavalkya, she said, "Oh, you who are worthy of worship." So now this confirms Yajnavalkya, who is worthy of being worshipped, viewed all the assemblage of sages. Now, let me pause here for a moment. Of course, we didn't read the full beginning of this work, but there are many sages who are there as this conversation is about to happen. So you can envision this. Again, it's similar to the Bhagavad Gita, where you have Krishna and Arjuna having a discussion, but then all around them, there are warriors, thousands, millions of soldiers, etc. In a similar way, not soldiers, but sages. Now we have Gargi and Yajnavalkya about to commence a discussion, and there are sages who are sitting there quietly listening. And you find this scenario, let me just talk about this for a moment. It's a fascinating scenario that you find again and again in the Vedic scriptures, where an important conversation is about to take place. Not just an important conversation, a conversation the contents of which have the ability to alter a person's existence for the better. And even then, not just that, but it is so recognized throughout the universe that this is about to happen, the significance of what's about to happen, that sages will come quite literally from other planets to sit there in an assemblage and listen quietly as this conversation is about to take place. That's what's happening here. Now let's go on. Let's look at what Yajnavalkya actually says to Gargi. So first, he addresses her. Gargi, best among those who have realized the ultimate truth. So again, similar to what was said before, it's understood that she is already someone who is not just a philosopher, she is herself someone who is realized in truth. Realized. So again, not just intellectually, but she has realized truth. And yet still she's approaching him. So this gives you some idea of who Yajnavalkya is. If this person who has already realized the truth, she's approaching him and with humility and saying, "Oh, please teach me." And then what does he say to her? Arise. Because at this point, again, this is inference. When you approach the guru, you offer your obeisances. So the inference is that she's offering her obeisances to her guru, and he's saying to her, "Oh, get up, come. Arise. Arise, I'm going to address you now." And then he says, "May all be well with you." May all be well with you. He's giving his blessing to her. This is something else that the guru does. That very often you'll see the guru in Abhaya Mudra, and they're giving their blessing. So immediately he's giving his blessing to her. Why? Why is the question. The reason why is because of how she approached him. See, it's interesting. So the guru recognizes when someone approaches with such sincerity and honesty and goodness to them, to the point where the guru is already ready to give his blessings to this person before he even begins to instruct. That's what he's doing with her. So that's why he says this. May all be well with you. And now he confirms that he will instruct her. He says, I will tell you all about the essence of yoga, and which was taught to me by whom? Blah, 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 again on the Oprah Winfrey book club? No. By Brahma, the creator of the universe. He is explaining parampara. He's explaining, all right, I'm going to teach you as was taught to me by not just anyone, but quite literally the creator of this universe, Brahma. Very good. And now he goes on, and again he confirms, Gargi, when I teach you. Now this part is indeed crucial. When I teach you, see, he's preparing her for what her mindset and attitude should even be when she's being taught. When I teach you, listen to me with a focused mind. So what he's saying to her is, pay attention. When I teach you, understand that no, this is not like you're in your philosophy 101 class at your community college and you're half listening to the teacher because it's kind of boring and you didn't get enough sleep that day, that morning. No. He's saying, oh, I will teach you. I'm going to teach you. When I teach you, have a focused mind. have awareness. Now she will. She will. Why? Because she's Gargi. And that being the case, she's someone who, again, she already has practiced spirituality. She knows meditation. She knows yoga. She knows focus. But again, he's saying this not just for her benefit, but for us who are reading this. Let's go on. And then this ends what he says. Now it's the narration. So saying, meditating in his heart. Now this is Yajnavalkya, who now, before he even begins to teach, he is meditating in his heart with one pointed concentration. So again, the same thing that he was asking of her, he has that effortless ability also, that he has the ability to focus completely. So he's meditating with one pointed concentration on the specific thing, person, or being who he just kind of decided to focus on, right? No. Again, it makes it very clear. The Vedic scriptures don't play games. The Vedic scriptures are very, very clear. Who is he meditating on? He's meditating on the highest. He's meditating on God. He's meditating upon that which is the source of all reality. So he meditates with one pointed concentration upon the Lord of the universe, and the name is given Narayana. Again, no ambiguity. Narayana is who he is focusing on. Now, just to let you know, because the translation of necessity gets to be a little bit bulky here, maybe slightly confusing. Now what's being discussed after this are the qualities of Narayana. So first of all, it's explained, all right, before he even begins to teach, first Yajnavalkya goes into perfect samadhi, really, one point in concentration in meditation upon not just anyone, but Narayana. And why, one could ask? Why Narayana? Who is this Narayana? It's not asked overtly, but a person who doesn't know, they may be wondering, oh, why meditate? Who's that Narayana? Why focus on him? Well, now, for quite a few clauses, it's explained who is this Narayana. So, who resides in the heart of all beings. That's one thing. We discussed this a little bit, I think it was the last live stream, where we discussed that this is the nature of God, and this is reason number 2722 why we know we're not God. I just made up that number. But there are so many reasons why we know that we're not God. This is one of them. God resides within the hearts of every single living being, not just humans. Literally every being who lives, not just on this planet, all planets. Not just in this universe, all universes. Not just the material realm, the spiritual realm as well. God is omnipresent within the hearts of all beings. That's God. So every time you hear a little sociopathic pipsqueak on YouTube, oh, I am God, and you are God, and we're all God, and the brick is God, and this is God. No. I don't reside in the hearts of all beings. I reside in my heart. You don't reside in the hearts of all beings. The little pipsqueak on YouTube who says, I am God, does not reside in the hearts of all beings. He resides in his heart alone. There's only one being who can say this, and that is God. That God resides in the hearts of every living being. So this is one of the qualities of God. Let's go on. Who is the support for the existence of all forms of life in all the worlds. Very nice. Just in case we didn't quite get it, this clause makes it very clear, extremely clear. So who is the support for the existence? So in other words, this is Narayana. Narayana is the sustainer. This is quite literally what the very word, the very name Narayana means, is that being who is the sustainer of all beings. So again, something else that none of us can claim to be. Let's be blunt, let's be honest. Some of us, including the little pipsqueak with his little YouTube channel who drones on and on about how we're God, can he even sustain himself? Some of us can't even sustain ourselves sometimes. We most certainly are not sustaining all beings and all of existence at all times. That's God alone. That's Narayana alone. So indeed, this is what is being said here. Who is the support for the existence of all forms of life and in all worlds? Now let's go on. Who is the source of this universe? So indeed, the very source itself. This is explained, if you want to speak Vedantically, this is explained in the Brahma Sutras, that what is one of the definitions of God? That which is the source of all things. So this is God, this is Narayana. Who is fit to be meditated upon by yogis. Who is fit to be meditated upon by yogis. Let me repeat this. Who is fit to be meditated upon by all yogis. Now you'll understand why a little while ago I began half-jokingly saying, oh, and who is Yajnavalkya meditating upon? Anything, anyone, whatever he chooses, whatever comes to his mind? No. Yogis, if they're real yogis, not fraudulent yogis, real yogis, that is, yogis who are discussed in the very Vedic scriptures themselves, who are rishis, who are truly in every way perfect beings, they meditate on not just anything, but they indeed meditate on the highest. They meditate on that which is fit to be meditated upon, and that alone is Narayana, the sustainer of all beings, who is unattached. Indeed, we are all meant to be unattached, but this also is the nature of God as well, that God is indeed unattached. In other words, that God transcends all reality. God is attached to none of it. See, we're attached to everything. We're attached to our car. We're attached to anything you can think of, our money, etc. We're attached to our clothes. We're attached to our very own body. Well, this is one reason why, if we're going to be spiritual beings, if we're going to be yogis, again and again, we're told we must be detached. Not that we stop caring. No, we care. Indeed, if anything, we care deeply. But we understand the nature of reality, that everything comes and goes, that happiness and suffering come of their own accord. And as a result, we live our life in such a way that we appreciate everything, but we're also unattached. Oh, I have a beautiful car. Oh, I appreciate it. Oh, it's very nice. It's very nice. Oh, car accident. It's totaled. Oh, that's sad. Has it destroyed my life? No. It's sad. Oh, I'll have to get a new car now. But I'm unattached in such a manner that, having lost a car, a house, this, that, anything, that being the case, we understand that we go on because we are that eternal soul. Well, in the same way, God is the ultimate unattached being. He has perfect detachment. So that's what's meant by this. Who is always in a state of bliss. Oh, this is the nature of God. Think about this. God not only is always in a state of bliss, God is the source of all bliss. What being is not searching for bliss? Let me tell you, every being is searching for bliss. That little ant looking for its little crumb on the sidewalk is searching for bliss. That little crumb is bliss for the ant. To us, it's nothing. We don't even notice it. What? There's a crumb? Where? I don't even see it. But to that ant, they find that crumb. They're excited. They're happy. They go back to their ant home and they're in bliss. Every being is searching for bliss in its own way. Well, if we were to understand that abstraction of bliss in and of itself as a metaphysical phenomenon, as a category of being, we are to understand that God is bliss and God is the source of all bliss. Let's go on. Rest of these we're going to go through a little bit quicker, only due to time. Give me one moment, please. Who is immortal? So indeed, God is immortal. God never goes out of being. God is eternal. God is eternal, meaning in a bi-directional sort of way. He never goes out of being. He never comes into being. He has necessary existence. He is omnipresent. And that's self-explanatory. There is no place where God is not. God gives existence to all things. God gives not just existence. Existence is surface level presence of God. deeper, God gives meaning to all things. God gives existence to all things. Indeed, there's nothing we can look at, including ourselves, that would not there is nothing that we can look at that would have existence without God's presence there. God must be present for there to be existence. But more than this, God gives meaning to all things. And who is the ruler of the senses? So indeed, God is the ruler of the senses, meaning that our senses are crucial to us. It's through our senses that we interact with the outside world, but also the senses, of course, can overwhelm us sometimes to the point where our senses are uncontrolled. God is the ruler of the senses, meaning that God gives us our sensory ability, number one, but number two, God has perfect control over his senses. And indeed, God has senses also, but they're transcendental senses. Now let's go on. Now the narration shifts a little bit, and now we're talking about Yajnavalkya again, beginning now. Yajnavalkya, whose wealth is his penance and austerity. Oh, let's stop there. Let's stop there. Everybody has a wealth of one sort or another. What's meant by that? Oh, everyone has a talent, a skill, something that you could say is the hallmark of what gives them value. Now, value is something that is different from an existential attribute, an essential attribute. By value, what's meant by that is what is the actual value of that thing or person, i.e., what is it that it has to contribute to the world? So even people themselves have value. So this is what is being said here, is that in the case of Yajnavalkya, his value, his wealth, literally what is his treasure, and his treasure not just that he self-possesses, but now that he can give to others. His own wealth is his penance and austerity. In other words, he's someone who he has done penance and austerity all his life. As a result, he has acquired tremendous knowledge, tremendous wisdom, tremendous power, tremendous fire within him. This, again, I keep repeating this, but this alone is something I can talk about for a long time. When we do austerity, when we do any sort of penance, when we do something purposefully, consciously, that is difficult, that is going to seemingly take from us, but we do so spiritually, we do a fast. We take a vow that, I'm going to, let's say you're in India and you're in New Delhi and you want to take this kind of a vow. Some people will do this. Vrindavana, the land of Krishna, is about 90 miles south of New Delhi. Some people will take a vow. I am going to walk on pilgrimage 90 miles from New Delhi to Vrindavana, go to one of the temples and offer my obeisances to the Murti in that temple. That's an austerity. That's a penance. And again, there are many different kinds. Well, when an individual does such penances, they begin to accumulate inner wealth. What is meant by this? It means that they become someone who quite literally inwardly is on fire. Tapas. Tapas is the word for austerity. The word means fire, interestingly. You build this inner fire of austerity in such a way that you become someone who nothing can stop you. Nothing in this world can stop you. If you have something of good, of importance that you want to accomplish, you have done such austerities such that you have gained such a fire of power within you that there is literally no external power in this world that can stop you. That's wealth. That's more important than money. That's more important than property. If you become this sort of person who is so in command of who you are that it's quite literally like you are a living fire that nothing can stop, that's the ultimate value as far as a person and what they can possess. So this is discussing Yajnavalkya, whose wealth is his penance and austerity. But then it goes on. And who is the greatest among realized souls? So again, this is not just anyone we're talking about. Yajnavalkya is someone who indeed is a very great rishi. And this is stating it very, very bluntly. He is the greatest among the realized souls. Now, beholding Gargi with compassion, So again, he's looking at Gargi now, and with compassion, he says, O Gargi, realized one. So again, he's making it clear, this is not just anyone. You yourself, you're very spiritually advanced. O Gargi, realized one. And now he gives her qualifications, but as a disciple. We talked about his qualifications as guru. What are those qualifications? Many, but the most important of which is he understands the essence of the Shastras. Now he says to her, interestingly, O Gargi, realized one, who is proficient in all the Shastras. Now he says this about her. So again, it's interesting. We talk all the time about the qualifications of the guru, the qualifications of the guru. The disciple has to also be someone with tremendous qualifications. In this case, she herself has studied the scriptures. She's not just someone who kind of stumbled across a few verses of the Bhagavad Gita online. No, she's someone who also has studied the Shastras. And what does he say? Come forward. First, he says to her, arise, because again, she's offering obeisances. So he says, no, please get up. And then he says what he says, but now he says, come forward, come to me. In other words, now the instruction is about to commence. He says, come forward. And he confirms this. I will explain the principles of yoga. So again, yes, come forward. I will now explain what you asked me to explain. And he says again, which were taught to me by Brahma. So again, this is being repeated. This is being repeated. But to make it even clearer, he also says, who is known as Parameshti. Parameshti. Now, this is a very interesting term that is not very well known in the Western world. There is the guru. There is the Parama Guru, who is the guru of one's guru. But then there's that person's guru. That's Parameshti. Okay? That's specifically, technically what this means, but more, it also means a very highly qualified guru. It means both. So it can be used very specifically to speak in this way of, okay, you have your guru, your guru's guru, that person's guru, that's very specific. But then, let's say you want to talk about another guru who lived, 10,000 years before even that person, you can use the same term, Parameshti, meaning a very advanced being. Now, why is he saying this? It is again to drive this home. What I'm teaching you, I didn't just learn on a ayahuasca trip. I didn't just take DMT and this came to me as some hallucination. Now I'm going to teach it to you. No, I didn't myself just watch a bunch of YouTube videos with other people blathering on about their speculations about spirituality. Well, now I'm going to teach you what I think I learned. No, he's making it very clear. This is an epistemological statement par excellence. He's explaining, oh yes, I will teach you now. And I will teach you properly and conclusively. Why? Because I have learned this from my guru, who in his case is who? Not just anyone, Brahma, who is the creator of this specific universe. Can you imagine having the creator of this universe as your guru? Brahma with 4 heads, who is a demigod. This is the guru of Yajnavalkya, but then he makes it clear by using this term, Parameshti, that this is also parampara as well. And then he says, interestingly, now he's no longer addressing her. This is important. Remember, there's an assembly of sages who are here as well. Now he addresses them. And he says to these sages, sages who are assembled here, listen to me with total concentration along with Gargi. How significant is this? That again, number one, there's an assembly of sages. Who are these sages? Again, they're not just nobodies. These are not people who gained interest in crystals, a few years ago. No, these are sages. These are individuals who themselves, many of them, are self-realized beings. And they are there because they understand the significance of what is about to happen, this discussion that's about to take place between Gargi and Yajnavalkya. Now he addresses them. And as the guru, he understands, as do they, that he is above them. He is there to teach them, not the other way around. He addresses them and he says, "Oh, you sages who are assembled here, listen to me with total concentration." He's treating these sages as disciples. And he's telling them, all right, are you ready? I'm going to teach now, but make sure you're listening if you want to derive benefit, just like Gargi. And thus ends these verses. And then we go on to what he actually says, to his actual teachings. But we're not going to go through that today because, again, it took us long enough just to go through this little preface of setting things up. But hopefully by looking at these verses, we get an understanding of, indeed, what it means to approach a being who knows truth, whether it's a guru, a yogi, a rishi, a sage, whatever term you want to use. What it means to approach a person who knows truth in such a manner that you too now will know truth. What's the example that Prabhupada gave many, many times? It's that you have a roaring fire. You have a roaring fire that is here, and you have, let's say, an iron bar, and you want that bar to have the same qualities as the fire. What do? You take that iron bar, you place it in the fire, and you leave it there for some time. How long? However long as is necessary, until it comes to the point where that iron bar begins to have the same qualities as that fire, until it gets to the point where the iron bar is glowing like the fire, that there is light emanating from that bar, there is heat emanating from that bar, and more. In the same way that that fire can set something else on fire, you can now take that glowing bar and touch paper with it, and just like the fire, that paper will burst into flame. In the same way, this is how we know truth. You approach that being who knows truth, and in their proximity, eventually, you become like unto him, and now you have the ability to teach truth to others. This is how we approach the guru for instruction. Not with arrogance, not thinking that we already know something. We know zero in comparison to the guru. Indeed, this was one of the, at least one of the blessings of my life, is that all throughout my life, from the beginning of my spiritual life, consciously at the age of 10 up until now, I always approached my gurus, in the plural, always with the idea that I know nothing. I am here to learn everything. And this is how we are to approach. So with that, we will stop here. I thank you all very much for being here. Let me say that because this took a little bit of time, we're not going to do questions and answers today. Rather, next week, next Sunday, will be exclusively questions and answers. So if you have questions about anything that we discussed today, or about any aspect of Sanatana Dharma, write them down. Don't trust your memory. It's the Kali Yuga. Don't trust your memory. Write them down. And again, the next time that we get together, next Sunday, it will be exclusively questions and answers for at least a full hour, if not more. So with that, I again thank you all very much for being here. I thank all of my students for being here in the temple as well. And I thank our international audience. And namaste. Everyone together. Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Shriman Narayana.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Bhagavan Shri Krishna.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Jaya Shri Guru.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Sanatana Dharma Jayate.
Dharmarashtra Jayate.
Dharmarashtra Jayate.
Suryavangsha Jayate.
Suryavangsha Jayate.
Victory to Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way. Victory to the Dharma nation and the many Dharma nations that will soon arise in the future. Victory to the solar dynasty from whence arises our true leaders, many of whom are taking birth right now. Evam bhavatu. May such victory be so. Very good. And with that, everyone, between now and the next time that we get together, next Sunday, I ask you all that you please take very good care of yourselves in every way.